I put a picture of a 2012 or 2011 Bentley Continental Super Speed Bugatti Edition. I ended up buying that car, exact car. Like,
Wow.
I don't know if it was the same VIN number, but it was the exact carbon copy car that I had on my vision board, and this exact Rolex, the exact everything that I had on that. I went on the same vacation, all that stuff. And then I kind of got it all and was like, I'm not any more happier. And like, I think I wanted all of that for other people and I didn't want it for myself. We need 10 dealerships and 20 dealerships, and I want to go to $1 billion in revenue and, 100 million. Like, people can't fathom that we were doing $100 million in revenue a year. Well, me, I'm like, it was expected. I didn't even care about it. 100 million was nothing. It was a check mark on the box to $1 billion. Like, that's how, big my vision was. Which,
are you an entrepreneur? Are you thinking about being an entrepreneur? Are you a parent? Are you a child of entrepreneurs? If any of this relates to you, today's podcast is for you. This interview is with an individual named Jason Haugen. Jason grew up in a very, very successful entrepreneurial home. His parents did not hand him money. His parents did not give him a company to run. His parents passed on to him their example, passed on a foundation of faith, passed on a work ethic, passed on knowledge, experience, and mentorship to their kids. Jason took those things, added his personality to it, added his work ethic to it, and developed who he is today. He's 31 years old. He was a millionaire by 27, and he has so much to share. This podcast could have gone on for much, much longer, okay? I just want you to understand today's podcast is for you. I want you to hear his story. You need to understand that the foundation that he grew up in and his choice to apply what he had learned developed him into the person he is today and the person he is becoming tomorrow. I'm excited for you to hear today. Enjoy. Probably the biggest question I have, okay, is, my mom was a church secretary and my dad was in the Army, and that's the home I grew up in. All right. So I learned how to get paid every 2 weeks, and I learned how to spend all the money you made. And that was my world. Okay. I had a paper route and I was an only child. Well, your world was a little different. Okay. So tell me, what was it like growing up in the Haugen household?
I would say, it was interesting. I always kind of joke that we oftentimes had it harder than most because my mom and dad were extremely hard on us, right? They wanted, us to work for everything we had, which is just fine, right? I mean, that's what we want. That's the whole point of everything is, we work for the things that we have. And like I'm the only person that I know that actually had a time clock to clock in and clock out. And, that's what we did. We didn't have chores, we had chores, but we had jobs to do and we got paid for those. But it was on the other side, it was awesome because there's a lot of personal development. My mom and dad were very, like, every dinner table was a seminar, right? I mean, every time that we sat down, they were teaching us, they were talking to us. We got to, hang around a lot of very, very successful individuals, whether they're financial or leadership wise or whatever. That was a huge, huge blessing. But mom and dad were just mom and dad. Like it took me a long time to understand why everybody liked them so much, but they were just mom and dad were mom and dad. So it was interesting.
So with your mom and dad, of course, I got to know them from a distance just because of my experience in, everything that we were a part of back then. And so for us, it was this distance relationship that one day we'd like to be able to know Randy and Valerie Haugen,
Right.
And so for you, when you say it was just mom and dad, when did it kick in? And it could have been a few years ago, but when did it kick in to where, wow, these are some really special people that I've really taken for granted, even maybe?
I would say it took a while. I mean, probably We started in network marketing, so doing what they did back in 2013. And I still think even through the first 3 or 4 years of that, we didn't fully understand. And I don't know if we'll ever fully understand because, I think about them putting like, 15, 20,000 people in a stadium. Like they told us a story one time about in Salt Lake, how they, back then everything was done. I mean, and you might have been there, but like everything was done fax and, all that stuff. So they like oversold the Delta Center, they oversold the Huntsman Center, then they had to go to another conference center. And so, I mean, you're talking about close to maybe, 25, 30,000 people. That is just like, I don't even know if I could ever comprehend that. Because I watch, very successful influencers right now can't even fill up, close to, 4 or 5,000 people in an arena type setting. So I still think to this day, I'm still like, I cannot believe they did that. And so it wasn't probably until, 4 or 5 years ago, or maybe a little bit longer, that we were like, wow, like mom and dad were actually like legit. And because I mean, we saw them speaking, but like when when we were at conferences, like we were messing around backstage, or we weren't ever really paying attention. When we got a little bit older, we started watching them speak, but we still really didn't understand and grasp what it all meant. You're just watching them on stage talk to people. Okay, that's cool. Until, we matured and we were doing what they were doing, and we learned, a lot more about them, because they don't really tell us a lot. I've heard more about them from other people than I have ever heard from them, and I still continue to this day hear about them, and they don't really talk much about it. So it's
Right.
been interesting.
Well, you have to remember, back when there was the Peach Dome, that's what we called it. And back when there was all those places you mentioned, we didn't have, I mean, we had cell phones, but we didn't have social media like we have today. We didn't have like what we're doing right now. This didn't, I mean, maybe it existed, but I wasn't a part of it. And so,
Right,
we had to meet face to face in big auditoriums. And so now the only thing that you have giant gatherings is sports and concerts,
right,
you know, and
right.
these
No,
people have a
true.
significant following that as to why that even happens. So
Right. No,
good point.
it's crazy. I mean, it's like, when back in the Peach Dome, I think it's the Georgia Dome now, or whatever it's called. When Les Brown had, still it goes every now and again, it'll go viral on, social media. And I'm like, that my mom and dad were at that conference. Like, that's crazy. They spoke on that stage, and it peels the back, and then there's, I think there was like 97,000 people fit in there. There was 90,000 people sitting there, right? And it's just amazing. It's unreal. Like, it's even hard. Like, and some people, when you talk to them about it, they're like, no, because I've had conversations with some of these extremely influential people on social media that are doing these massive conferences, these growth conferences, all these different things. And I've talked to them about that, and they don't believe it. One of them actually reached out to Les Brown, and he was like, no, you're not even close to what they used to do. And it was kind of cool to see that happen.
So you're around the dinner table every night. And like you said, it was a seminar. Okay.
Right.
Was this the kind of thing you rolled your eyes at? Or was it like, there was actually things your dad and mom said that it's like, oh, this is pretty important. Maybe I'll apply this one day.
Right. I would say if it was me getting in trouble, I probably rolled my eyes a little bit. Them trying to
Okay.
teach me a lesson, because I was a not the best kid. But I would say out of all of the kids, there's four of us, and I have a twin brother. I only know my situation, but every time my mom and dad opened their mouth, especially my dad, in like actual physical business stuff that he had, I tried to learn everything I possibly could. I wanted to hang out with them as much as I possibly could. I don't ever remember. I mean, I was kind of I'm not going to say a loser, but like I didn't want to, I didn't really ever go hang out with friends on the weekends. I wanted to go, listen to mom and dad, or hang out with mom and dad, or like he might give me a nugget here, here or there. And so I spent probably an obnoxiously amount of time with my mom and dad. And I was just trying to absorb everything I possibly could. Especially when he went into his restaurants, and like how he operated and he carried himself, and the questions that he asked and did all that. Years later, I've kind of found out that, like, even I'm not, I don't want to offend my dad, but like my dad is not a business owner operator. He is a really good investor. And so I've kind of learned like the big difference, especially in like actual physical businesses and things that I'm doing, is he's like, hey, like, I'm probably not the best example because he had a guy running all of his companies, and he basically was the money. That guy was the operator. He just did things. But then he's taught me how to really, invest my money. So that's always really been a, good thing right now.
So when you said you're back with, your mom and dad, and you want to take in everything that they have to say, and you're following them around, and you want to spend as much time as you can with your mom and dad instead of go out with your friends on the weekend. How old are you at that time, at that point?
I would say whole junior high school. Like I never remember going out in high school. Never remember really hanging out with many people. It was as our junior and senior years, we got kind of into cars, and we had a little car group, and we would hang out in the garage. But who was there? My dad. He was teaching us about cars, and so I would say he's one of my best friends, and we hung out a lot, and he taught me pretty much everything that I know, and I think that he has done more than he will remember that he's done. Because he's always like, oh yeah, like I remember I built that building, or oh, I own that building. And I'm like, dude, like I had no idea. So it's kind of cool to even still now learn some of the stuff he's done.
So you guys, I know you got cars as definitely something you have in common.
Right.
Did you go on a lot of camping adventures with them? Cause I know they did and do that, like out
Yep.
in the desert. What's that
Yeah, I mean,
like?
we grew up in the desert.
Okay.
We grew up. You became a man in our household when you got a mag light and a Leatherman, and then you got your own four-wheeler, and that was like the like you have taken the next step into life when you got a mag light and a Leatherman. And that was not even the LED. That was the one where you had to be real careful. You couldn't touch your fingertips on the bulb and all that stuff. Dad taught us all those lessons. But yeah, we spent a lot of time in the desert. Unfortunately, I have not been camping since 2018. Was
Okay.
the last time I went camping. I ever even went through all the RV dealerships. The last time I ever went camping in an RV was before we had the RV dealership. So it's kind of funny, but they still to this day, they're actually in Lake Powell right now.
Yep.
They went down, they drove down to Vegas. They spent a week in Vegas at the races, the NHRA races. And then they're over in Lake Powell. They're coming up here for a little bit. And I think they're going on a couple month trip again. So that's what they love to do. And we spent a lot of time in the desert, and I do miss it. My wife you couldn't pay her to go out camping. So
Okay. All right.
yeah.
So she's more of a concrete and chlorine individual.
Yeah,
Yes.
like some of the RVs that we sold. I mean, there are
Right.
multiple six-figure RVs, dishwashers in them, washer and dryer, heated floor, all this stuff. Nope, couldn't get her to go into them.
Okay. Okay.
Yep,
So, a lot of people, when they're entrepreneurs, they get bitten by the entrepreneurial bug. Okay.
yep.
When did that happen to you?
I would say I've had it since I got right out of high school. I started a few little businesses with friends here and there. And then obviously the network marketing thing is I just wanted to be an entrepreneur, wanted to work for myself, and honestly do what mom and dad did because of the life that they lived. They had an amazingly blessed life, and they helped bless others. And I just wanted to do what they did. And we started the dealerships, and then I got ultra like hyper obsessed with that business, and then other businesses and things like that, and then culture, and kind of just stacking on top of it. And yeah, like I have a bug that's probably not good. I mean, I have, the personality that I take way too much on, but I just love building and love, projects.
Yeah. So you and your brother, obviously you're twins, but what are some of the differences of both of you? Because you're both entrepreneurial, you both are
Hmm.
business owners, but I know you have different personalities and maybe you go about things differently. So tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about what it was like growing up together, but maybe going your own path.
Yeah. I love my brother to death. Obviously, like you said, he's a twin. He's entrepreneurial. I don't know. Like, I haven't done a ton. Like, Joe is an operator. He just, point A to point B to point B to C, C to D. Like he just operates. I am probably the worst operator. I am more of the big picture vision. I can lead the organization, lead the company. I can give us the vision to go do things. I can orchestrate a meeting and all these other things, but I'm really good to surround myself with an amazing team, and they go in their superpower. And then I go work on the business. I've never been an in the business kind of guy. And I think Joe loves being in the business, loves grinding it out, loves doing those things. And me, I'm like, I'll just like, I multiple times have started a business, put someone in there. I'm not making any money because they're doing, I'm paying them to do it. And then I'd slowly rather grow the business and it kind of take up my mental energy to do it, which is, I've always had assistants and things, around me to do that. But Joe's great. Like, I have a really big marketing, like vision or like brain, I guess. Like I can just go in, like, even so, like, we have a golf company and some of these massive, like the biggest names in golf, like we're able to go in there and just tweak them and change them a little bit. And it's kind of just some crazy ideas that I have. And they're just like, wow, okay, like this is awesome. And that's the big difference. And like I will operate, I'll do things, but I just like, have you ever read the book Traction or
Yeah.
by Gino Wickman? I
Yeah.
am not the integrator
Okay.
by any stretch of the imagination. I am totally the visionary when it comes to that.
Okay. I want to ask more about the golf in a minute. Okay. But
Okay.
my understanding, and tell me where I'm missing something, but from high school, you did a few small things on your own, but then you went into a network marketing venture with your parents. Would you say that's next, or is there something else in there?
Nope. I would say started little detail things here and there. Like a detail company with a friend, did a few other things, but really, in I think it was before we graduated, we heard something was coming down the pipeline. And so we kind of were waiting. And so I wasn't really doing much
And this is high
until
school
then.
graduating?
This is high school
Wow.
graduating.
Okay.
And so we kind of waited. Yeah, because graduated in 2012 and then the company launched February, I think February or something like that, or April of, well, I think February. And then we signed up in April 2008 or 2013. So yeah, so then did that from 13 to 19.
Okay.
So 13 to 19. Yeah.
And how long from there until the Haugen Group was formed?
So we actually purchased the dealerships in 2018, or the
Okay.
dealership in 2018, and we never told anybody.
Okay.
Obviously, like sometimes it's a little odd, and people might question things in your network marketing and that you're doing something else or whatever. But yeah, it was February 2018 actually. So Avastate was still around. We owned the dealerships, and I started working there. Or I guess it was January 2018, and I started working there January 2018. January 18th, 2018 was actually my first day on the job.
Okay. So obviously, you guys buying RV dealerships makes complete sense because you have this love and passion for RVs and camping and everything else. But
Right.
what did you bring to the table that was so unique, that was different than what was currently going on out there in the world of RV and RV dealerships that made you guys so good?
I would say the culture and leadership part of it, which culture and
Okay.
leadership in the RV business doesn't really exist. They say it does, but they like the level that we've been able to see culture and leadership through the network marketing days and through like my mom and dad and all that is so beyond some people's wildest imagination. They can't even comprehend it. And so being able to have seen that and be able to bring that into the RV business, we came in and I mean, we pissed a lot of people off. I mean, we came in, we did a lot of good things. We grew super fast. We went from 1 dealership to 9 dealerships. We did, 12.5 million in sales the first year. We did 13.5, then 65, then 110, like, and then we kept it at 100 million for, in the next couple of years. And, we kept growing and multiplying, and the dealerships that we took, we made our money back in a year. Like we did all these crazy things, but it all was just culture and how we treated people. We didn't like, there'd be no, like, I'm getting arguments with people all the time about this because there would be no possible way that someone 20 years ahead of me that I could have actually operated the dealerships any better than them. I didn't know what I was doing. We had never been in a dealership. I had bought a car one time from a dealership in my life. And it was a weird experience because it was nothing to do with like a real, how like car dealerships really do operate. And so I had no idea what we were doing. We had no idea what a CRM was. We had no idea. Like it took us so long to get down that path that in hindsight, I wish that I would have like had someone there with me that, operated the really, really good and knew all the processes. Then I could come in and put like leadership on top of it and the
Yeah.
culture and like focused on that. But, it is what it is. But it worked until it didn't, when the markets kind of came, and that's an interesting story. But, we bought him in 2018, had him for a couple of years. COVID hit. That was a crazy story. Um, we had just bought two stores, the two largest stores in Utah, and then in February 1st of 2020, and then COVID obviously hit in middle of March, and so that was an interesting time there because we just bought those stores, and you're like, what did we just do? We just spent all of our money, and now we're going to go bankrupt. And so I took a chance. Actually, I remember calling my dad saying, hey, how does bankruptcy work? And he was like, you're already going bankrupt. And I was like, no, but I just want to know how it works. If I have 10 million in inventory or 20 million in inventory, what's the difference? And he's like, a digit, like, it's the same thing. And so we bought about $20 million worth of inventory in a day, and we doubled up on everything, more than doubled up on everything. And it ended up being one of the best decisions I ever made.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was how many years after you started, or how long after you started again?
I was almost 2 years to the day.
2 years. So the
Yep.
first year you were real successful, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We made $27,000 our first year.
Okay. So 27,000. So that's
Yeah.
not quite okay. Yeah. That's great. A couple thousand a
Right.
month, but
Yep.
were the companies that you took over, or was the one that you took over initially losing money, and the fact you made was a big deal? Okay.
Huge. I mean, they had lost. We started out day one almost $400,000 in the hole. They were losing
Okay.
money like crazy, and so we had made it back up and then cracked $27,000 worth of profit. And I mean, that was a huge win in my book. I mean, the company never done that before, and so us coming in not knowing what anything about the RV business. And it's kind of funny because like the reason why this all started was my dad bought an RV from. He's had multiple RVs, and he hated the service part of it because it's extremely complicated, bad communication, so on and so forth.
And that was his background.
That was his background. Yeah, he
Yeah.
started in service department back in cars and boats, years and years ago, back in the 80s. And so he thought, his entrepreneurial Brian, the entrepreneurial bug, that his mind is like, okay, we can fix the service part of this. So we were going to go open up a service center. And then these guys approached him and was like, hey, we know you bought RVs from us. We know you have money. We're going out of business. Do you want to buy us? And so my dad's like, hey, I don't really want to do this too bad, but Jason, do you want to do this? And I'm like, I was going through at the time I was getting divorced, and I was going through a couple of the things, we were kind of getting divorced, not getting divorced, all this stuff. And then, I'm like, okay, like, I'll try it. And so, and then at that time, like the Avocet stuff was kind of fiddling out, and I just needed a change. And so, I was like, sure, we'll do it. And then we get in there, and it's like that everything that you hate with the service business is kind of done at the manufacturer level. It has really nothing to do with the dealerships. And so it's kind of interesting how we kind of came in, thought we could change all this stuff, and then you go to the manufacturers, and the manufacturer's like, no, we don't care. It's by design. It's supposed to be overly complicated and all these things. So that's how it kind of originally started, was just a conversation on a beach in Mexico. And we were like, sure, let's do it. And so we did it. And then it was amazing. It was a crazy, wild ride. We went from 1 location to 9 locations, and we had our own training technician center. We could actually master certify our own technicians. We were fully accredited, everything. We're the only one in Utah. And then we had all kinds of different ancillary stuff, insurance companies, blah, 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 all this stuff. And it was great, while it was great.
So was the goal to build it up to sell it, or was the goal
Oh,
something different
man.
than what happened?
The goal, obviously, I wanted to keep building the company. But I think that COVID drove a lot of sales, kind of in spite of ourselves. And we had a very strong culture, but operationally we were weak. And that's on me because I didn't have the experience. And so we kind of got caught a little bit behind a little bit too much. And when everything turned like that. I mean, 1 month going from selling 300 units in a month to 100 in a month, like when it literally went from 300 to 100 and then down. And so, I mean, you couldn't turn it around that fast. And in the RV business, you have to pay what they call curtailments, which are basically principal payments on your inventory, because they call it flooring. It's basically a credit line to buy inventory. That's all it is. But we had a $59 million credit line, and you're paying over 10% interest a month, or 10% interest a year. So we're paying over $500,000 a month in interest. And the principal payment in February of 2022 was $890,000. So we had to pay our 500 and something thousand in interest, $890,000 in principal. There's a million something in cash out. We have $1.5 million of payroll. We have all the, and then it's like, we're so far behind, you can't make up for it. So it was crazy. I mean, just the way everything happened, it was bizarre. But I mean, we got through it. We made it through it. I ended up, or my dad ended up bringing someone else in to run the company, because I hadn't called him, and I was like, dude, we've been going through kind of hell the last little bit. I have called in every favor I know how to call in, and I think I'm to my breaking point of favors. And so for the betterment of the company, you need to bring someone else in to basically take over that, and I'll kind of step away and, help you with marketing, and I had some other stuff going on. So that's kind of what I did. And the guy, came in, operated everything, and he ended up buying the last 2 stores from my dad.
So this had to be the experience, I'm guessing. Okay, you tell me. The experience that stretched you the most as an
Oh yeah.
entrepreneur and business owner than anything else in your life.
Like, I could write a book about the crazy stuff that happened to me, and like, I mean, I'm thinning. I lost a lot of my
Join my
hair.
club.
I mean, I kind of wish it was on the back here, but yeah, it's all the front right here. I'm going to Turkey one day though. I'm gonna get some hair
Ah,
transplant. But it was honestly the most stress. I got down to 150 pounds. I mean, I'm 200 pounds. I mean, I'm down 50 pounds lighter than I am
you got
now.
down to 150?
150. I mean, I haven't been
What?
150 pounds since.
Okay,
I mean, I
what were you
wasn't
when you were
eating.
bodybuilding?
Like 220.
Wow, 70-pound difference.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I got down to a 26 waist, to put it in
Wow.
perspective.
Didn't know
Yeah,
your hip bones were going that far.
me neither.
26.
I wasn't sleeping. I mean, I got so hyper focused on the success of the company, because there was so many times where it's like, oh, we owe $200,000 in 2 weeks, and we have 50 grand in the bank, just to make it happen. And so, we made it happen. We were trying to sell the dealerships, obviously, to a bigger organization, which would have been phenomenal. And it was the funniest part. Like, this is, at the time, I literally just had to sit back and laugh. But I'm in Florida negotiating a deal with a massive multi-billion-dollar group that's based out of Florida. They have locations all around the country. And I am negotiating a deal for ownership of my 2 executives. And that was on October 13th, 2023, Friday the 13th. And both of those executives that day, while I was on the airplane from Florida from Jacksonville to Atlanta, they both walked out on the company, and my whole executive team left. And so which is kind of just, interesting. So one of them that had been with me at the beginning was actually the president and COO. Just shot me a text. He didn't even call me. But they didn't believe in the company. They had zero belief. They kept telling everybody that we were all going to jail, which I'm like, I don't even, we're not doing anything illegal. I don't know how you're going to jail. But, they walked out, and then I'm flying home from Atlanta to Salt Lake. Obviously, I can't talk to anybody. Managers are texting me. My dad's texting me. Everybody's losing their mind. And I just had to shut their phone, and literally remember looking up in my seat, just looking up at like God, saying, like, laughing, because I'm like, you say that you will never give me more than I can handle. I'm pretty sure this is the tip top. I go from a team of 12 to 1. And
Are
so
you the one?
I'm the one. And
Okay.
so I remember landing back in Salt Lake City at around midnight, having a meeting with the managers at like 1:30 in the morning. And I'm like, you're either with me or you're not. Right now, you're making the decision. We're going to band together. This is a brotherhood, and we're going to move forward. I need everybody to take up slack. I need this happen, that happen. And we got together, and we actually catapulted that, and actually had an uptick in sales. And we rode that. Like, we actually did really, really well. It was actually one of the biggest blessings that happened to us, because those 2 executives that walked out, one of them in particular, he was ultra negative, and on everything, and every meeting was just negative, 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 negative. And my dad and I would battle back and forth about letting him go, and him walking out was kind of the answer to that. And once that negativity disappeared, it opened up a whole world, and was like, hey, like, we can do this. And we got through it. And it wasn't pretty by any stretch of the imagination. I made a couple hires that one guy didn't like these people from another dealership. And I'm like, hey, I'm just trying to win. I have no ego. I don't care. So I went recruiting, going to recruit the best people from different dealerships, set up a dealership. We just operated and did what we had to do. And that was honestly the hardest time of my entire life. Like, had a baby in the middle of it. We were doing all, like, it got kind of, all this stuff started to happen. My health started to go downhill. All, like, it was just, and I hyper focus so much on the dealerships that I don't know what, I mean, 7 days a week, 12, 16 hours a day, honest, like just sleeping at like traveling, doing whatever I possibly could to just keep the company afloat. And it, ended up working. And then that's when I kind of, a little shortly thereafter, I was like, hey, I'm, for the betterment of the company, I don't need it to be about me at all. It's probably best that I leave and wish you all the best. And yeah, that was kind of that. It's a crazy story. Like, it's honestly 2 years of my life that I wish I never could, remember. But I've learned so many lessons, and I'm very thankful that happened early on in my lifetime. And, now realizing what to do and not to do. And 20 to 30 was fun. We had the jets, and, the dealership was doing this and doing that, and it was fun money. 30 to 40 is okay. Now let's lock down. We're serious. That's when we build wealth, and not only financially, but like, I've really been focusing on my relationships with people and just being me and not trying to be in an overly stressed situation. So sorry, I know that was a long answer, but
No. One time I reached out to your dad and asked him something about you, and he said, yeah, Jason runs the world right now. He's like in charge of the world. And I thought, in my mind, I'm thinking, this was just I say this very respectfully, just a kid not too long ago. He's matured, he's grown up, and now he's running this company. And it seems like he's just like, you grew, like, I watched you grow as a person so significantly during that period of time. Like you just grew up, like you got bigger. I mean, everything about you.
right.
So would you be anywhere close to where you are right now if those last 2 years, all that stress, all that, Lord, you're stretching me to my limit. Would you be anywhere close to where you are now if those 2 years didn't happen?
No possible way. Like, I can't tell you how many less, like, Justin Jacobs always used to say, like, everything in life is either a blessing or a lesson, and sometimes it's both. And every time that something would happen, I remember like sitting there on the plane looking at this text, and everybody's texting me, and finally I just had a K. And I remember like looking and like, everything in life is a lesson or a blessing, and sometimes they're both. What lesson is this? What blessing is it? And so I just had to kind of look for it. But I will say one thing that I've really learned that I think has helped me tremendously in all aspects of my life, and especially business, is I am so hyper focused in the moment that the noise doesn't matter at all. It's kind of like my dad tells the story of him speaking on stage and a lady's hair caught on fire, kind of kitty corner from his eye, and he didn't even skip a beat or stop speaking. He just
Exactly.
kept rolling, right? And so I'm kind of that way. Like, I say this 100% jokingly, but like, my wife could text me and be like, honey, I'm taking the kids, I'm leaving, I'm divorcing you. And I would, like, if we're having this podcast, I'd look at it and put the phone down and hyper focus on this moment, because there's nothing I can do to fix, like, and so with everything going on, I mean, you have banks hitting you up, employees hitting you up, you have people extorting you for this, and this has happened and that's happened, and you have, customers you're dealing with. Like, there's in 2018, the Harvard Business Review wrote an article that the hardest business in America to run and operate is an RV dealership. And I wholeheartedly believe that.
Okay.
And, 9 of them probably multiplies that factor, right? But, living in the moment and being so hyper focused, and your attention and everything in the moment to the person in front of you, or the situation in front of you, the book in front of you, the podcast in front of you, like, so focused. Now, if you're driving, take it with a grain of salt, but like, so focused, that's helped me a ton, because I had to learn to go from a meeting with the bank yelling at me about all this stuff to a meeting with the salespeople the next 20 minutes of saying everything's great, hyper excited. Everybody, like, how do you, like, do that, right? Like, it's extremely most people couldn't. Like my whole executive team couldn't. They kept, telling me all the time, well, I can't, have this, or we call them war room meetings. I can't have a war room meeting and then go out of the war room meeting thinking everything is great. And I'm like, well, I do it all the time. So I don't know, why you can't do it. And it's just, I'm not going to say like I'm built different, but I really had to train my mind to be so focused and hyper focused in the moment that nothing else matters. And most often we like hyper, like make, like we totally make mountains out of molehills, right? Because no matter who called me, what was going on, if it was the motor vehicle enforcement division, if it was, if it was the IRS, no one could have called me and I'd have been like, okay, like, you calling me, yelling at me. Okay, well, there's nothing let's just get through it. Right. And I was so hyper focused on getting to the other side. And I always called it my light at the end of the tunnel. I was so focused on that none of the noise and anything else mattered. And, we got to the other side. I'm not going to say there was a bright light at the end of the tunnel, but, we made it through. We did the things we had to do. It was always important to me that everybody had, the dealerships were still there. And so, we got through it, but it was just, and a lot of it was out of my control. Like, there's multi-billion-dollar, I always kind of blamed myself, but there's multi-billion-dollar dealership groups that are closing 20, 30, 40, 50 stores, or, every single store they have but one, and all these other things. So I'm like, okay, like we're good. We sold off, and then we hyper focused on Utah, and we're kind of doing okay right now. And so, I was super proud of the team, and it wasn't on me. We had a fantastic team. Love those guys to death. Still do. I wish them nothing but the best. And we made it through it.
So you were operation director or you're CEO. So you're in charge of
Yeah.
the whole picture.
The whole thing, yeah.
What kind of role did your dad have in this on a day-to-day or month-to-month basis? Or was he really more of an advisor, mentor, kind of like silent partner kind of what was that like?
I would say my dad, I mean, it was more of just, he had nothing to do day to day. Really, he would get a financial statement a month, and then we would fist
Talk
bump.
about it.
Like he didn't know any of the employees, never been to any of the locations. He didn't really know. Yeah, I mean, nothing day to day. As it got, I mean, his as things got tougher, he took over the banking relationships, because I am a bank's worst nightmare, right? I'm young. They hate that. I mean, literally, I had banks turn me down because of my age, which I'm like, there's got to be something illegal about that. But they'd be like, hey, you're literally, they'd be like, you're too young. We don't want to work with you. I'm like, our company's doing XYZ. We have super healthy financials, all that, but nope, too young. We don't want to work with you. Okay. And so that was always a thing where I was like, okay, I'll talk to my dad. And so when he had that, old man, like wise talk, with the banks, and they love that. Banks don't like sales guys. They want to know the facts. Me, like, I'm too exciting for them. I'm too like, hey, like, we got this. They're like, well, we want to know the number. I'm like, no, we got this. No, we want to know the number. So my dad is the numbers guy. So, but yeah, as far like for probably 3 years, I mean, we would never talk about the business ever.
So you said you trained yourself to be hyper focused. Okay.
Yep.
So is Joe hyper focused, or is Joe a little more? I mean, I'm just guessing. Maybe you two were similar at one point, and then you became this hyper focused individual, because that's all I've ever known about you, is being hyper focused.
Yeah, I think Joe hyper focuses on stuff that he likes, but he does. I mean, he does kind of jump around, to different things. Like he'll kind of hyper focus, and if it's not 100%, then he'll go to something else. Which I kind of do the same thing. But I am like, when I get in my mode, nothing else matters, and I am just trying to succeed and get from point A to point B, and I don't care how we get there. I just want to get there. And I feel like I work really, really hard. And did work really, really hard. Right now, I'm trying to like not work, not get into that craziness where I was working so hard and do all those things that I was doing, because I don't want to be 150 pounds and have terrible health and, never see my family and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I would say Joe and I are a little bit different that way. But I mean, he still has success in what he does. Joe is actually working for the old company. He is their like operations manager or something like that, for the old dealerships, which is kind of odd. We just kind of flip flopped. But he still has his corn dog stuff, but he's back in the RV business. So it's interesting.
So when did this kick in, this hyper focusedness? And the reason I'm asking is this: I remember when I really got to know how hyper focused you can be is when you were bodybuilding,
Right.
because you got so hyper focused, like it almost cost you know?
Right.
So
Right.
like there's got to be a positive and a negative related to being hyper focused. And how do you balance that? Because there's a lot of people out there who aren't even focused at all.
Right.
Okay. And then there's people like you who are so hyper focused that it's like, dude, you need to come down a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I almost think it's part of like the ADHD in me, but like I'm so like golf, I get super hyper focused at golf, and like nothing else matters besides golf. I get trainers, I do all these things because I want, and I don't know if it's like my drive to be the best, but like I don't want to suck, right? Like, and I do it with everything. Like my daughter, I want my daughter in the best dance, studio. I want her doing the best ballet. I want the best gymnastics. I want the best tumbling. I want the best because it's like then like I was talking to like my ex-wife, we always joke around. I'm like, do we want her to suck? Like, if I had the conversation, I'm like, hey, we want her to be mediocre, would we say that? She's like, no. Like, then why do we put her in the mediocre stuff? She's like, okay, so like, we're kind of together, but like that's just my personality. Of like when I go to the dance competitions, I'm like, we're getting number one, and I don't know if it's like that drive of trying to be the best and succeed. But I don't like to lose. I mean, it's like not like that. I don't like to lose. I want to look at myself in the mirror and say I gave it everything I had to be the best, or to do this or to do that. And in bodybuilding, I want to look myself in the mirror. If I was last place, I would look myself in the mirror and say, I gave it everything I had, and I couldn't have done anything different. I don't want to look back and say, I should have worked out a little harder that week, or I shouldn't have done this that week. I, I mean, you saw me in Puerto Vallarta. I think it was Puerto Vallarta. I mean, I was prepping for the show in Puerto Vallarta, at an all inclusive, and I was strict, and I was having them make me extra food and different food, and I lost weight through that whole entire time in Puerto Vallarta. And I mean, that's just kind of like my personality. And so I hyper focus on things, and I don't want to suck at them. I want to be really good at them. I want to get good at them. I want to have all the information. I want to be the best. I want to know everything. And I mean, that's kind of what I got in the RV business. That's what I did with culture. Like I took over 10,000 hours worth of training for personalities, disc personalities. I have manuals over here that stacks and stacks of manuals to teach everything on disc personalities, because I wanted to have the best program. Right. And, I am a little bit over the top when it comes to things, which like me and my dad kind of battled, because I'm like, oh, if we're going to have an office, it's going to be the best office. If we're going to have, this, it's going to be the best. Like I want to be, near the top of everything. So, which is good and bad, because some of the stuff, is not good. Obviously that hyper focus when I almost died, that was not necessarily the best. And I'm still dealing with, that was 2018, and I'm still dealing with consequences of kidney disease. And so, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But with business and in life, like I really try to be smarter when it comes to my hyper focus, but I do still have that. Like and it sometimes can be, one of my biggest strengths could be my biggest weaknesses.
Yeah. How does that influence your marriage right now?
It's not easy. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's, my wife is like, wants a husband. So if I'm like focused on something, she's like if I start doing something, like she'll start see packages rolling up at the house. Like I'm buying a couple of things. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm making a studio for the podcast." All this equipment starts rolling up. She's like, "Oh, well, see you in 6 months when you're done building your studio." So, it's not. I mean, it's not easy, but I think she knows me and she loves me, and we've done a lot of fun things together, and we really try to take time with each other. And she's been, actually super a lot sicker than I could have ever imagined these last few weeks. And She actually just had an emergency surgery on Friday, but she's good now. And so but then like, hyper focus, I'm all in on her all, like nothing else matters all weekend. So it's like, she likes because, I'm taking the kids, I'm going here, I'm going there, and she just gets to relax. But, it wasn't easy at the beginning, but I think we just had to really learn how each other operates. And, it's kind of one of those things like, oh, Jason's just being Jason, so just let Jason be Jason. And like, it works.
No, I get it. So you mentioned multiple times the word culture when it came to the RV dealerships, and that was your magic secret ingredient, culture. And I know now you're running something that called Culture Camp. Okay.
Yep.
And it had to have stemmed out of that. Am I right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
So tell
go
me,
ahead.
like, why is that important? Like, why is it so important that companies and organizations influence their culture, okay, for them to be as successful as they could be? Tell me.
Culture is everything. It's how you operate. It's how your employees operate. It's the vibe or the brand of, like, culture is so much more than like people say like, oh, it's, a vision statement or values or this and that. Like there's so much more that goes into it, which that's all part of it. But it is everything to a company, I believe, because if you have the opposite of, bad culture, it's, we've seen companies go up and go back down. I was just with a guy the other day that they had a $200 million tech company, and the CEO is not good culture, and they're zero right now, went completely gone. And it's how you operate, it's how you like, you're dealing with your employees. It's, I mean, we get granular from like one-on-ones, because so we have a podcast called Culture Camp, and then we also have a consulting part of it that we call Culture Shift. And so we come in, we teach a lot of different things. We hyper focus on personalities, management styles, and communication styles, because everything, like, when culture comes down to it, and when problems arise in companies, it's 99.9% communication. And it's not only what you say, it's how you say it, and how you are direct with people and indirect with people. And if they're, more relating, or, more not relating, they're indirect, direct. Like it's identifying personalities and how you're going to talk to them and how you're going to communicate to them. And, we teach a lot of it in sales. And, if someone's super direct with you, be direct with them. If they're indirect, be indirect, And so it's this whole thing that I love, because it literally changed our company. And people still to this day will text me and, say that how much the culture meant to them, and this and that and the other. And, they still take things on to the next, as they go on to the next company and whatever that may be. And I've even actually taught some of their companies that they go into, because they talk about a lot of my stuff. And so, yeah, it's just, culture means so much to me. I mean, it's because I've seen it take a broken company and make it, whole. And then I've seen that duplicate and duplicate and duplicate and duplicate and duplicate. But I think the biggest thing with culture is people tend to think that it's a everybody gets a trophy. No, it's a high performance culture, right? A very, very high performance culture. I always kind of think of it sometimes as the old San Antonio Spurs with Popovich. His culture was a certain culture, but it was a high performing culture, right? And that's just the culture. I mean, culture doesn't always necessarily have to mean, rainbows and butterflies and fuzzies, right? It's whatever the culture you want to create. When we go in and we talk about culture, it's like, what do you want the result to be? And then we kind of back figure that.
How do you know if a company, like, if let's say I own a company, how do I know if I have a bad culture and I need help?
I would say lack of communication. If you're having problems, if there's, I would go interview employees. What do you think of the culture? How are you treated? Do you feel appreciated? Do you feel satisfied in what you do? Do you feel appreciated in what you do? Are you having success? Like all of that, I would. I mean, I have a survey that some people take and their employees take, and they just, are you was the communication effective? Do you know what you're doing? Do you feel, satisfied in, what the training that you've been given? Like there's a lot that goes into that. And then we teach how to identify their personalities by taking a test. And then we kind of just, roll through it. And then we give them the findings, and it's like a 50-page report on their personalities. Because I believe everybody has two different personalities, one in favorable situations and in unfavorable situations. And so, we teach DISC, but there's kind of two parts to DISC, and it's in favorable and unfavorable, because I'm a natural I, right? My natural self is an
I wouldn't know
I'm
that.
left and right.
I'm just
Yeah,
being
I
honest.
mean, right. And I wouldn't know that about you either.
Okay.
Right. But no, but like, you're high energy, high I, right? But when it comes to like an unfavorable situation, say the hyper focus and a problem, I go dominant, right? Like
Yeah,
I am
I'm sure.
but the point, like my brain is the point I want to get back to having a good time. Like
Mhm.
I don't like to be in this constant stress. And so when it comes unfavorable, it's almost that fight or flight. It's that
Yeah.
unfavorable situation. So when we, think about situations, when we plot map stuff, even we did it yesterday. Is this favorable situation or an unfavorable situation? Oh, this is favorable. And then I actually can plot map a team's personality to see how your team's going to generally respond to that problem in a favorable or unfavorable situation. And so you can say, okay, this is an unfavorable situation. Okay, we all agree. And then we're probably going to respond to like this. Is this a good or bad way to respond to the situation? Like, good or bad. And so you kind of work through the issue, and it almost dumbs it down a little bit. But as you get rolling and you get used to it, it's just automatic. And it's just like, okay, favorable, unfavorable. Okay, like this is how we're going to respond to it.
So this culture camp system that you have, is this something that you've learned through all the different sources that you've pulled from and made it yourself? Or do you follow something that's already been produced and you just do it well?
So a little bit of both. I've definitely brought a bunch of stuff that I've learned into what we do, but then I also follow a guy named Lee Quinn and Dr. Michael O'Connor. They have written most leadership. I mean, they've over 150 books on leadership and personalities. And they've actually co-authored with numerous famous authors that actually kind of take more of the credit than they do on these. And so they have a software, we have, a whole performance management system, CRM, all that stuff to help manage people and to create that culture within the company.
Okay, fair enough. So I remember, I'm going to change gears on you. Okay.
Yep.
I remember years ago, and I see every time I'm in the Mexican aisle at my store, I think of this. Okay. Cause it's a certain bean company that I know you Goya. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, tell me, like, does that play a role in your life today? Or is that just back when I heard it for the first time?
No, I still say it.
Okay.
I still, Goya, I can say, get off your ass is
Sure.
what Goya means.
You're a guest.
And yeah, so get off your ass. But it's true. I mean, you can only hope and want and wish for so much, but you have to get up and have that massive action, right? It's like it comes in everything in life. If you just sit here, it's a lot of great ideas. Like, and that's what, like, I've learned as I've matured, is that all great ideas don't just magically happen, right? Even if they're just fantastic ideas, you have to have execution and massive action, and that's where that, like, talking about Gino Wickman's traction, like the integration part comes into, effect, because it's so important. And so every time we have meetings, right now, in every business that we have is, okay, like we have an action plan of, okay, like what massive action are we going to take to, get to where, what we just talked about. And because we have to do that. And before, me being immature would just kind of, the meeting would just disperse and be like, okay, like it's a great idea, everybody's going to do it, but there was no action plan made and no follow-up and accountability on that action plan. And I think that's so important, because a lot of people just sit here, they hope, they wish, poor me, blah 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 blah. Like, the only reason I am sitting here today is massive action. When I say massive action, it was like the most hyper obsessed massive action I have ever had in my entire life over the last 2.5 years. And now, like, it's starting to kick back in right now because of all the success we're having in these other companies. And so, it is that Goya, and I still hold it near. I actually listened to that talk, I'm not going to lie, not too long ago. I found it on it started randomly playing on my phone. I don't even know how to find it.
Randomly. Interesting.
Randomly. Yeah. Cause it's still like the weird, crazy code of the recordings. You remember back in like the boss days, and they had those, it's like this, like 18 like big thing. It just started playing, and I'm like, oh,
Oh
this
yeah.
is me. And then I opened it up with Goya, and I said ass for the first time on an Avocet stage, and everybody about fell over.
I know the gasps. So,
Yep.
Jason, there's there may be more, but I know there's at least two different people out there. One is someone who says, you know what, I'm thinking about becoming an entrepreneur. I have interest in becoming one. I think this might be the direction I want to go. And then you have the guy who is one, but just went through a failure.
Right.
Okay. Both of them are facing a position where it's like, I'm going possibly into something I've never done before, or that second person, I've done this before, but I'm going into a different business altogether. And there's fears, apprehensions, all kinds of stuff. You've been through this numerous times.
Right.
Okay. But
Right.
the advantage you have each time is you have the experience you get to carry with you from the past,
Right.
where that first guy doesn't have any experience. Okay. Maybe all
Right.
he is a W-2 employee. What would you tell that person when they're at that point of decision of moving in that next step in life? Because you've been in both. You've been both.
Right.
Okay. What would you tell them?
So the person that, maybe is just starting and doesn't have a business, I would say find you a mentor and go all in. And now when I mean all in, that doesn't mean, quit your job and do all that stuff, because, sometimes that doesn't make sense for us, right? But mentally go all in and find a mentor, go mentally all in and give it everything that you have, sprint as hard as you possibly can. I used to say, if you put your mind to anything for 30 straight days and everything that you do is that thing, you cannot fail. And I've seen that personally. So imagine if you did it, 60 days or 90 days. And so, I joke around like right now, like, my coach is, Gipper Finau for golf. And he's always like, if you just gave me 30 days every single day, where do you think you'd be at? And I'm like 1,000 time steps that I have right now. And so I'm like, don't tempt me, Gipper, because I'll quit everything. I'll be here for 30 days. But just think about what you could accomplish in 30 days. And for the guy that, maybe has had some failures, maybe is an entrepreneur and took, steps back. I've been there. I had a lot of success in the network marketing, and then it peeled back, and then had a little bit, and then it peeled back. And then, I ended up sweeping floors at a cabinet shop, and then I ended up into the dealerships, and then that was a crazy wave. And then we had to take 10 steps back and sell everything. And, life is completely different, and, so on and so forth. One, it doesn't matter. Like, remember, who cares if you fail? Everybody fails their way to success. And you need to learn the lessons through the failure and take those lessons and keep pushing forward and have that like crazy belief that you can do it, because you can do it. If I can do what I just did, coming through what I just came through with little experience, you can do anything, right? Like it's just putting your mind to it, that massive action, that massive belief, finding a mentor, having some, like, that leadership part is so important, because they can help you. They can kind of be your culture right now. They can be your leadership, be your mentor, be your guidance. I've always been the guy that if I'm going to Walmart or to Target, I'm going straight to the person in the red shirt and asking them where this something is. I hate just wandering around looking, because I'm just, destroying my time. Like why? Like, I don't need it to be all about me and being like, oh, I found it. Like, I was looking for pajamas for this baby shower my wife forgot to go shopping for. So I'm wandering around Target trying to find these pajamas, right? These certain pajamas. I'm like, you know what, Mikkel? I'm just going to go ask the person. No, you don't need to ask the person. Yes, I'm just going to go find someone who knows what I need right now, so I can just move forward. And I attack life like that, of what does someone have that I want or that I need, whether that's relationships, or that's a faith-based thing, whether that's a business. What can I grab? Because more often than not, a real mentor and a real entrepreneur and a real person will just help you because they want to help you. There's a lot of like fake gurus out there, and trust me, some of these guys have been some of my best friends, and I've traveled the world with them, and kind of, separating from them. But like, if you find that real person in your life, and it maybe, one might be for your faith, one might be for business, one might be for, that leadership side, it you could have three people. But finding someone that just knows more, helping them guide you through it, and then just going all in like before, and just massive action and hyper obsessed with where you want to go. I don't know how you could fail. Like, I literally, if you spent 30 days nonstop every minute of the day that you were awake, working towards your goal for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. I mean, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know how you could fail.
Yeah.
That would be hard. Like you would have to
Right
be
on.
working, going in the opposite direction. And that doesn't always mean that you're going, like your goal is $1 million in revenue, that you're from 0 to 1 million in 30 days. That just means you're taking those steps forward and those little deposits in the bank, and you're just keep going forward and keep going forward and keep going forward and keep going. I mean, because why not? Like what else? What other choice do you have? You want to go backwards? I mean, that's the easy way. You know, my mom always used to say the committee called they. If you care what they think, then just go where they are, because they're always in the back behind you. So, yeah, sorry, I got a little rant there, but
No. So you're a millennial, right?
yeah.
Is that right? Okay. What bugs you about the generation that's older than you?
I think just all of the negative talk on us, you know,
Okay.
it drives me crazy. It bugs me that I feel like there's almost some sort of jealousy about the tools that we have, or how our
What are
brains
those tools?
work, of how to do. What was that?
What are those tools?
Like a lot of the AI stuff, or like the social media stuff, or like we're very computer savvy, we're very tech savvy, we're very like, okay, you've been doing it that way, but how can I do it smarter? Like my brain is like, okay, you know, you're doing it this way, but is there a virtual assistant or a VA I can hire? And I know how to code AI. So I through all the dealership stuff, I taught myself how to code AI. And so I've built a bunch of AI bots to handle a bunch of my stuff. And so it's like, it's not that I like, again, the integrated and visionary part. Like, I want to spend my time doing stuff that I want to do. And I think that there is an acceptance of my generation that, hey, we're not going to be good at everything. So we're going to just surround ourselves with people that maybe do it better than us. Like Fiverr blew up, right? Because Fiverr, you go on there and they're better than you, right? But it's like that generation, that's maybe one or two, above me, has that word. No, I'll do it because I'll do it. Okay, well, you're trying to sit here how to figure out Photoshop. I'm eating dinner. Like
Right.
I'll set an email off, and I have no problem doing that, because and that's just my experience. Like I've seen a lot of people where it's like I just sit there and stare at them, and it's like why don't you just do it this way? Oh, I don't want to, I don't trust them, or I don't do this, I don't do that, or who knows who's on the other side. I'm like, okay, and maybe I'm too trusting. I would say that is probably one of a good and bad quality of me. But I feel like that generation, maybe that's the thing that bugs me, is they don't trust anybody. I'm like, it's just send an email. It's making a logo for you. Oh no, I can do it. Okay, well, I'll go make one for you for $50 on Fiverr or whatever. We have graphic design artists in house, but it's funny.
So what about the group that's below you in the sense of age? The one that's coming up,
Um,
that's younger.
I think I personally think that there is a lot of entrepreneurial characteristics of the generation younger than me. Um, I know. So in Utah, we live in an insane bubble. Like it is more, I would say it's more normal for a person my age or younger than me to be an entrepreneur than to have a job. Like I probably know more entrepreneurs like than people that have jobs.
Well, it's like the
Um,
network marketing capital.
yeah, and door to door, right? Door to door
Yeah,
is
door to door.
massive here. Um, and so maybe that's why. But like I know some, probably shouldn't say this, but I know some door to door guys that are making six figures and they're still in high school, and they skip a week at school here and there and go do a blitz and some other. Like I actually know a group that's going to Ohio right now, and they're in
Wow.
high school, and they'll go make a ton of money in a week. And I'm like, that's cool. And I think that, like, maybe my generation got caught up in all of the glitz and glam of social media, but then maybe the generation below, because it was new and it was like, oh, all that. But then the generation, below me is like, I want that, so I'm gonna go get that. And I feel like I've had a lot of younger guys work for me, and even guys in high school that have really good work ethics, that want more in their life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So before we started recording, I know we talked a little bit, and I don't know a lot about this because I haven't really seen a lot of it, and that's on me. But you started a golf company, is that right?
So I purchased one of the largest, or probably the largest content creation and marketing company in golf called Wedge Golf Company.
Okay.
And so like we were just out of the Masters doing a bunch of stuff with them. We do projects with the largest brands in the country. Um, I got bags right here of the largest brand in the country, and we work with a lot of different PGA golfers and celebrities and all kinds of people doing a bunch of different stuff in golf. And then I'm also acquiring the largest tournaments management group in the country for golf tournaments. And we already had signed. We have some publications coming out pretty soon that are going to be massive, news for that acquisition, and then the brands that we're working for as well there. But I got into golf. I don't even know how. I mean, when I exited the dealerships, I was going to take a year off, and we were looking at Airbnbs in Cabo for a month or so. It's just hard with my daughter and the schedule and stuff like that. I was trying to talk my ex-wife into coming, but she didn't want to. But I was trying to figure out what to do, and then I went on a golf retreat, and then I met this guy who was a 6-time CMO in Silicon Valley. His marketing brain is unreal, and he was an advisor for this golf company. And I kind of approached him and was like, well, what if we bought it? And he was like, what? And so I created this ventures company, and then I needed that marketing operations aspect to it. And so I approached him to kind of be a part of my group, and now it's me and him are the heads of it. And we have that. We also have an accounting firm that we do bookkeeping, accounting. We did over 400 million in accounting last year. And so we only had 1,700 in errors, which I'm super, super proud of. It's crazy. Margin of, errors real small. And then we also have a couple door-to-door things. We have a construction company. We have the Treasure Trove down in Ogden, which is a bin store. We're opening up more of those. We have a media company. We have our culture camp. We have a bunch of stuff kind of underneath this umbrella called Blackjet Ventures. So
Okay.
it's all over.
So the we and all of that is different partners.
Yeah, so it's just me and Vince.
Okay.
We own Blackjet Ventures, and then Blackjet Ventures owns 100% of all these companies.
And he's the marketing guy that you were just talking about.
Yeah, his marketing brain, like he's unreal when it comes to marketing and leadership. He used to be leadership officers at companies. He's been a CRO at companies, and then a 6-time CMO. So he knows. He's big tech, massive in Silicon Valley and in San Francisco, and then same here. They call it the Silicon Slopes here in Utah. He's ultra connected. I've met with a lot of crazy different people because of him. We've got a lot of projects that, we're working with the NBA. We're working with with hockey. We're working with all kinds of crazy stuff in the golf, and then marketing, and then with our venture space. So it's going to be wild.
Okay. So Jason, I'm just trying to grasp this. I mean, let's go back to when you were in, let's say, junior high school to now.
Yep.
What is the biggest element that caused you to think so big and believe that you could actually do it? And you're only 31.
That's a great question. I get asked that a lot, that like, how do I think so big? Like, and it's not that I think so big. It's like my brain has already been there and succeeded. Right. And maybe it's because I've seen massive success. I've seen, those massive arenas where, it was a dream of one person, whether that was, Dexter Yeager or my dad or whoever, anybody in that organization, to be able to have a dream and go do it. And I've seen a lot of dreams accomplished. And so in my eyes, why can't I do it? Someone's going to do it. Like, guaranteed someone's going to do it. Why can't that be me? And I would rather like go and create strategic partnerships and do this and do that and create this massive thing, and then get there. Like, I don't care how we get there. I just want to get there. But I have always had this kind of like childlike blind faith and just assumption that it will happen, which is good and bad. Like, me, if we're doing a deal and we're getting close, like in my brain, it's already happened. I'm moving on to the next thing. So like, I have to be careful about that sometimes. But like, I believe with every fiber in my body that something is going to happen, and anything that I put my mind to, I can do it, because why not? If I hyper focus on it, I do the right things. I have the enough vision, because like it's crazy when we take over these companies or when Black Jet Ventures comes in and we do all these different things. It's funny to me. I don't relate because they're thinking so granular when I'm thinking like, okay, well, like let's 10x this, and that's what I did in the dealerships. Is like, okay, one is rookie numbers, right? Like one, we need 10 dealerships and 20 dealerships, and I want to go to $1 billion in revenue, and 100 million. Like people can't fathom that we were doing $100 million in revenue a year. Well, me, I'm like, it was expected. I didn't even care about it. 100 million was nothing. It was a check mark on the box to $1 billion. Like that's how big my vision was. Which sometimes I gotta sit back, smell the roses, and have a good time. But kind of with golf right now, we do have some. We're in talks with some crazy, individuals who are on PGA Tour that just played this last weekend, and a bunch of stuff to be able to do something pretty epic. And like I'm already like, okay, but we want to bigger. We want to do this. We want to do that, and get a bigger team. And okay, we want to do like. And some of these guys, even these guys of these big companies, are like just shaking their head and laughing at me. But I'm like, hey, my vision is just so big, and maybe because back in network marketing, I did have the vision of the 50,000 people, the 100,000 people. And so it was never a question in my mind if we could do it. It just got to get there.
So I'm just curious, why would you just mentioned you acquired 2 companies? Okay. I mean,
Yep.
there's others, but I'm saying you acquired content creation and then
Yep.
a company that puts these tournaments on. Why would I'm just asking. I've not been in your shoes specifically like what you're talking about or their shoes. Why would they sell?
That is a fantastic question. I think, the 2 individuals, there's 3 individuals that own this company. I kept one of them. And they just, I think they were losing a little bit of interest. They didn't really know how to make the business work. When you're really good at a craft, you're really good at a
E-myth,
craft, right? What was that?
like E-myth.
Yeah, yeah. But me, like, I'm good at like orchestrating all the pieces and in moving the organization to get up, where we're already like doubling, tripling in our first month what they were doing. And I'm like, we're not even trying. Like that, like I'm like, hold my beer, let's go. And so like that's where now I'm like, we're seeing that success. We're seeing those types of things where I'm like, okay, now we're gonna get hyper focused and we're gonna move on. We're actually making some hires right now, and we're gonna keep pressing. We're lining some stuff up for the Ryder Cup because that's in United States this year, and we're doing all these things. Like let's keep pushing, let's go, but doing it smartly because I have lost a lot of money, doing this. So I'm making sure everything is right. I'm being very, very much more disciplined. Now I have my own accounting firm. I can't control anything because that was a big, we lost tens of millions of dollars by having bad financials and bad reporting. And so now I have a third party, accounting service that he controls everything. I can't do anything. I don't want to do anything. So we have little checks and balances, right? But I think when someone's just really good at a craft, they think, in this box. And it's just, when I'm like having these conversations and they've been like, oh, I made it. And I'm sitting here thinking like, you have no idea where you could take this thing. And, we were able to purchase the company, and I really think we're going to, probably double it, if not more, this year. And we have some exciting things working with some national, one of the things we're working on is with probably the most famous guy in the world right now. And it's going to be interesting to do that. But we're just like we're going to keep pushing it. It's fun, and then luckily I love golf, and so
Oh yeah.
it's fun.
Well, it sounds like you've loved everything that you've done. Okay.
Yep.
And this is just a continuation of that. So I have a final question for you. Okay. I really appreciate your time today. I love this. I truly love this. I probably picked up more than anybody. Okay. Just listening to you because I know but
All right.
what's
No, I appreciate
next?
it.
What's next for Jason? What do you
Oh,
see
what's
down
next
the
for
road?
me? So I'm working on a construction company and store right now. So that's, like we're demoing it, and we're going to build that, and we're going to do a bunch of construction stuff. It'll be a showroom and all that stuff. But through, honestly, like I have a lot of focus on the 3 things, which is my treasure trove, my golf company, and then that it's called the home improvement store. That construction store. Those 3 things I want to have multiple locations in the home improvement store. I want to have multiple locations of the treasure trove, and I want to grow this golf brand to be something massive. And I already know, I mean, I already know that we are. And so I'd say the golf right now is primarily my focus because it's a lot of actions going on there. But really it's just, I want to build something for a with a lot of stability. I don't want to really grow out of control because I did that and it didn't work out. I mean, we saw that in network marketing, with, I'll say Monavie because it doesn't exist. With Monavie, I mean, it grew to the top and then grew to the bottom. As fast as it went up, it went back down, right? And I will say they had a lot of similarities to us, as we were always playing catch up. And once everything kind of came back down, we're like, oh, now we're trying to reverse everything back. And so now I just want to be very smart, very diligent. I had a mentor. I got to chat with Steve. No, not Steve Young. Who's the guy over in Denver? I'm losing my train of thought. John Elway.
Oh, yeah.
John Elway and his business partner, the guy that ran all of his dealerships, his guy named Jonathan, and he taught me a lot of lessons. And he was like, everything you do in life is intentional. You make money, it's intentional. You lose money, it's intentional. Because I was like, oh, we're probably going to lose 100,000 this month. And he's like, why? And I was like, oh, we're just going to lose. He's like, well, you need to know you're only going to sell 20 trailers at a negative margin, and your costs are this and your costs are that. And so you'll lose 100 grand. You can't just say, I don't know. And so I was like, oh man, yeah, you're right. So everything, right now I want to do with massive intentionality to make sure we're doing the right things and just be the best person that I can be. And I want to be the same old Jason. And, I want to work on myself still. I want to grow our culture brand, through a lot of stuff we're doing, but just, yeah, we have a lot of stuff going on. To the average person, they probably think I'm crazy and, oh, there's way too much going on. He's spread way too thin. That honestly, like, that's my happy place. If I don't have a lot of stuff and kind of chaos going on, I don't have any fun. And I saw myself miserable with the dealerships when everything was, we weren't growing or we weren't chasing anything. And it was just like, oh yeah, we're doing good and it's fun. But like, well, I'm not having any fun. And so now, being able to do all this, and I've really learned how to multitask. Like 9 dealerships is nothing for 3 companies in my eyes. I'm like, I could do this with my sleep. So
how many cars do you own now?
I sold everything.
Okay.
Yeah,
I figured you had a
I only had.
collection.
No, I did. Everybody thought that I was a drug dealer. I think at one time I had a brand new G-Wagon, a Rolls Royce, a Bentley, a Lambo, a Corvette. Yeah, but
Which
I sold
Lambo?
my Corvette, the Gallardo, and then I
wow.
had a Rolls Royce Ghost and a Bentley Continental Super Speed, which was the Bugatti edition, which was pretty cool. And then I had a brand new G-Wagon, the G63 AMG. It was flat black. It's pretty cool. But
nice.
yeah, I mean, right now I just drive a Tesla, and I've had that forever. I put like 40,000 miles on it. And then I have a truck and then my wife's Escalade. But that was where like the 20 to 30 was fun. And a lot of people, like, I didn't really ever post on social media, like, any of my cars besides the Corvette. But that was fun. Yeah. I mean, we both got matching cars. But I kind of found out, my whole life I had this vision board with this Rolex on it and this car on it. Like I actually have, I bought, so in 2013, I put a picture of a 2012 or 2011 Bentley Continental Super Speed Bugatti edition. I ended up buying that car, exact car. Like, wow. I don't know if it's the same VIN number, but it was the exact carbon copy car that I had on my vision board, and the exact Rolex, the exact everything that I had on that. I went on the same vacation, all that stuff. And then I kind of got it all and was like, I'm not any more happier. And like, I think I wanted all of that for other people and I didn't want it for myself. Wow. And so I I remember wearing my Rolex, and I remember walking out one time and not a single person said anything to me. And I was offended. And I'm like literally driving home, like, did I buy this for myself or did I buy this for, someone else to think about? And so I started just selling everything. I mean, I'm wearing my watch today, but like, I mostly wear an Apple Watch, and like, I'm so hyper focused on like the success of the companies that I was still like 20 to 30 was fun. It was fun. Like we did a lot of crazy stuff. Like I sent my wife on a shopping spree in a private jet to Vegas. Like that was fun. But like I don't feel any more fulfilled. I remember flying home on the plane from Oregon by myself from a real long day, looking outside and thinking I had the world and literally sobbing about how miserable I was. And so, like, and that's when he came back and we sold the Oregon stuff, we sold the planes, we sold everything. And I'm just like, I never wanted to be this like insanely stressed out, miserable human being. I wanted to be Randy Haugen and Valerie Haugen.
Hmm.
That maybe they had stress, but it's a completely different stress. And I was miserable. Like I couldn't go on a vacation. I couldn't do anything. I mean, okay, I was on a vacation, but I was, 8 hours of the day I was on a call or doing this or doing that or dealing with this situation, that situation. And so now everything that I do is I'm with diligent, like I'm in diligently designing it where you got to work hard. You got to do a lot of things to make you uncomfortable, but I don't want to be miserable. And I want to surround myself with a good team and I want to delegate and I want to do all these things that I didn't do before. And I don't want to find joy in things. I want to find joy in peace and I want to find joy in my family. I want to find joy in my kids. And like, I mean, I'll tell you what, when I sold that Corvette, I didn't think one thing about it. And I had more people mad about it than me. And I'm like, tells you right there, I just didn't care anymore. It was fun. I actually sold it and bought a house, flipped it, made double my money. So I'm like, now I can buy another Corvette. Like, it's just like, I like that's my brain now is like now all those opportunity lost and the cost of everything that I was doing and spending money on and doing all this stuff. It's like my dad taught me a lot of lessons is like, make sure when you spend money, it comes back. I did a lot of spending money and it never came back and made a lot of kind of dumb decisions, which again, 20 to 30 was fun, but now 30 to 40 is a whole new Jason.
Wow. So now you want to be Randy and Valerie Haugen.
I do.
How
Like,
interesting. Like full
yeah.
circle from the kitchen table, man.
Yeah, because I used to think like, Dad, you're an idiot. You don't want to buy this car. Or
Of
like, why
course.
wouldn't you buy this Lambo? Or like, why wouldn't we buy a jet? Or why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? And he's like, I don't really care. And I'm like, how could you not care? And I realized like, okay, like I get it. Like I have a family member with probably 35, $40 million in cars on my wife's side with probably the most rarest cars in the world, all one of ones, Bugatti, everything about. It's cool because it's a car guy, but like he invites me all the time and I'm just like, like, whatever. Now he obviously his companies do really, really well and all that stuff. But like even him, he's like, hey, best case scenario, you crash it, I get another one. And I'm like, okay. So he lets me take his cars out and I could do some fun. Like I love cars. I love the car for the car, but like I just wasn't as happy as I thought I was. Now, in the next 4 or 5, 10 years, yeah. But like right now, I got a 1-year-old daughter. I got a 6-year-old. I can't drive him in the Corvette. So I put 3,000 miles on that car in 4 years. Like, what's the point of having the car, right? Like people do that in 2 months, So it's like, it just didn't really fit my lifestyle. So, maybe when I'm 40, 50, my father-in-law has a new Corvette. And so he drives it every day, but I'm like, he just drives himself every day. He doesn't have any kids or, his youngest kid's 18. So,
and you probably bought it for him.
Yeah. And he loves it. And I love that for him. Like, and his best friend, literally neighbors, shared driveway. They both got it. He got a blue one, he got a white one. And, that was cool for me and my dad to share that. But like, I'd always be like, okay, like I can't drive it to work because it, felt a little weird sometimes. But then if I had to go pick up my daughter, well, then I can't do that. I got to drive all the way back home. And then I'm like, the only reason I'm going to drive the car is because it's a Corvette. Like, I don't know. I just always had these weird things go on in my mind. But it was the most amazing car. I do want to get one eventually one day again. And I love, Lambos and stuff. My family member is one of the largest Lamborghini buyers in the world. And so he's got everything you can imagine. And so I get to luckily be around that, but maybe that helps my fix for now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, Jason, I just want to thank you for your time because I know you're in the middle of, you just mentioned 10 things. So, I mean, I love stuff like this and just listening to people like you who've come up through your family and the success you're having all by yourself, on your own decisions, and you're only 31. So
it's
awesome.
Thank you.
It's awesome.
Thank you for thinking of me and thank you for having me on the show. It's been fun. I miss you to death. So it's good to Good to connect with you.
Well, have an incredible day. I know you probably have it fully packed till midnight. So,
Oh yeah, for sure.
make it happen. And I'm looking forward to sharing this with the world.